And man, it's going down. We're gonna give some takeaways from the Christmas Day games that took place yesterday. And Zach, I have one big takeaway that I just want to throw out there before we get into these topics. I just want to say that the NFL owns Christmas now. And I'm sorry to any NBA fans that may be watching this show or that love the sport of basketball more than the sport of the NFL. But man, the NFL offered a triple header, along with the NBA competing with the NBA. We talking about matchups, on CBS, the Chiefs versus the Raiders, the Giants and the Eagles on Fox, and finally the huge Ravens, 49ers game on ABC. And you look at the numbers, man, the Chiefs and the Raiders did 171 million views on CBS and Nickelodeon. Okay, the most watched Christmas Day programming in CBS history. The Monday Night Football game also broke records, being the second most watched Monday Night Football game to my estimation of all time. So the NBA was known for dominating Christmas. Matter of fact, that's like the day where everybody's watching the NBA, in one day was Christmas Day. And now the NFL said, you know what? I have no more respect for you. It's no more, okay, yeah, I take Thanksgiving, you take Christmas. Nah, it's no more sharing and caring about each other's spaces. I'm actually going to take over because I am this billion-dollar industry and I am the best reality show on TV. And the NFL has proved that. So that's my starting takeaways right there.
Yeah, I'm interested because I didn't hear, like, not a lot of people, but some people saying, like, man, Cowboys Dolphins kicking off on Christmas Eve at 4:25, and the game ended like around 7:38, and that's when a lot of people are eating dinner. I'm sure there are a lot of people that couldn't really watch the entire Ravens Niners game or even some of the early games because it's Christmas Day. Like, I've heard people say the NBA is a good Christmas sport because you could have the game on in the background, but you don't have to watch every dribble. And I see where those people are coming from, but man, especially with the game with that big of a magnitude, like a possible Super Bowl preview with the 49ers and the Ravens. I don't know about you, Will, but like I made sure I was in front of my TV and watching every single snap of that game. And I feel like with the NFL, Christmas Eve fell on a Saturday and then on a Sunday, and then Christmas Day fell on a Monday. Why not just take advantage? You know how popular your sport is, how many viewers you're going to have either way. And I'm curious to see, like, next year when Christmas falls on a Tuesday or the following year when it falls on a Wednesday, like, are they still going to have games that day? But there's no doubt when you compare the ratings of the NFL and the NBA on Christmas Day, the NFL body bagged him. It was never going to be close, which is not a great look for the NBA.
But one good positive thing for the NBA here is that next year, if I'm not mistaken, Christmas will lie on Wednesday. So I'm pretty sure that the NFL may set that one out because it being Wednesday.
Would you if you're Roger Goodell though? Like I don't know. Like, why not have a Wednesday game?
I don't think it will be 3 games though. It might be 1 game, so there may be wiggle room to get some ratings in the earlier part of the window and probably the later part of the window. But maybe 1 game will probably be next year on a Wednesday. We'll see though. But anyway, Zach, I want to get into these games right now. And we all know the biggest game that was going to be on the whole entire weekend was the Ravens and the 49ers, which ended up being a blowout, a demolishment, They got tore to shreds, okay? It was a Christmas Day massacre in Santa Clara, and now we're going to talk about it right now. Where does Lamar Jackson, MVP case sit after the win against the 49ers, Zach?
Yeah, well, so I think the thing that's so interesting about Lamar Jackson and his MVP case, his candidacy here, is the fact that Lamar Jackson has already won an MVP before, right? It came in 2019. And kind of like what we were talking about with Russell Wilson, if you just look at Lamar Jackson's numbers, all of them this year are way, way down compared to his MVP season the first time around. I think he's like 19th in the league in passing touchdowns. Like, his numbers don't necessarily pop off the charts. But I feel like this is a situation where if you just watch the Ravens and Lamar Jackson on a week in, week out basis, you know just how valuable he is to the team. And we've seen it the last 2 years that the Ravens have just really fallen off without him. And looking at the Ravens as a team in particular and some takes on them coming out of this game, like, man, they now have 7 double-digit wins this season against teams with winning records. That's never happened in the history of the NFL. Prior to this, the most a team had was 5. That's double-digit wins against teams with a winning record. Their defense leads the league in sacks. They have the guy that I think is the MVP favorite right now. They have a coach that has a Super Bowl ring, that has won Coach of the Year before. And I just feel like all these numbers were justified on Monday Night Football. We spoke a little bit about this too off the air, is the Ravens, they easily could be undefeated right now. Like, they have had the lead at the 2-minute warning in every single game they've played in. The only two other teams to do that are the 72 Dolphins, who went undefeated, and the 2007 Patriots, who were one game away from going undefeated. So I feel like going into this game, Lil, and we're going to talk about San Francisco, I'm sure, in a little bit, the narrative was, oh, San Francisco, what's their weakness? They're the most dominant team in the league. No one could really beat them. But I feel like this game and this performance by Baltimore really showed us that, man, it might just be mano-a-mano, 1A, 1B. I don't know if these two teams are going to meet up again in the Super Bowl. It's entirely possible. But I think this game showed that even without Mark Andrews, even without Keaton Mitchell, like, the Ravens are not messing around. This is right now the best team in the NFL based on how they played on Monday night, and they need a deep playoff run. There's no doubt about it for me, and I think their MVP quarterback is a big reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I have any question that I would throw out there right now, because watching this game, I'm watching it, I'm seeing the domination, I'm writing notes, I'm taking things away from the game, and I'm saying to myself, okay, we all know the fancy stats. For example, Lamar Jackson is 20-1, all the time against the NFC. But can that dominance over the NFC spill over in the AFC come playoff time? Because truth be told, we don't have no crossover matches in the playoffs, right? It's not going to be no NFC in the playoffs. It's going to be AFC. And when you talk about the 3 losses that they have on their record right now, we're talking Colts, Steelers, and Browns, right? AFC teams. And I'm saying to myself, okay, can that dominance spill over? Now, the 49ers was a good start. That was dominance right there. They dominated that team. But once again, NFC team right there. And I'm thinking about this in my mind. Yes, Lamar Jackson, to me, he's an MVP lead right now. He is. I said that a couple of weeks ago. He's the MVP lead. But it's not only about Lamar Jackson, too. Obviously, your team has to be good in order for your quarterback to win games, to get that type of coverage. And their defense right now is stout. You got guys like Kyle Hamilton out here making plays. He had 2 interceptions, right? You got guys like Patrick Queen, Wilcon Smith that are franchise changers, that can make plays, game-changing, game-wrecking plays, right? Even guys like, Clowney from time to time can get a sack and make a play. Even guys like Cal Van Noy, who's a Belichick disciple, came from Belichick, right? One of the best masterminds defensively of all time. I remember that guy could play. They can make plays. They got a very good team, and they've got a very good coordinator as well that's scheming things up and making things easier for the defenders to make plays on the ball, generate takeaways, etc., etc. But anyway, like, coming back to Lamar Jackson, the reason why he's a top, of the MVP, it's not because he beat Brock Purdy. I never bought into that garbage. Oh, he's the MVP. Stop that, okay, please. All right, game manager, no, he's not an MVP. Not even close to one. Okay, is he putting up good numbers? Yes, but he's not an MVP. I already shot that down weeks in advance. The reason why he's an MVP is, number one, he makes plays that other quarterbacks can't make. You can't coach a broken play. So when you talk about this record and this dominance over the NFC, why is that? You think it's just a stat? Oh, well, 20-1. What's the odds? It's nothing. No, it's something. It's something. You can't. There's certain stats you could throw to the side, like it's just like, ironic, cool. But this one, nah. You gotta analyze it. Why is that? Because they don't know how to game plan for this dude, because they don't see this dude. And this Lamar Jackson that the NFC is seeing right now is a different Lamar Jackson. That's the whole NFL. You're talking about a guy, not only is he scrambling to make plays with his legs, but as a thrower. He wasn't doing that before. When Lamar Jackson scrambled, it was to run for the first down. Now it's a throw. That's his first mind. And those unscripted plays allows the receivers to reroute. And that's how he's able to complete those balls. And he's more scarier. It was hard to defend him before. Now it's even more. So I think when you talk about the dominance in the AFC, in the NFC, can that spill over here? Because that's not going to matter. What you're doing against the NFC is not going to matter come January. It's going to be what you can do in the AFC. And that's where I'm really looking forward to. And the one question that I do have, Zach, Two, and the one concern, maybe it's a little concern question type thing, is can the running game get going in the playoffs? Like, is it going to be a concern? Because you got this dude, Kean Mitchell, the rookie that is out for the year. He was playing good. He was gradually getting those reps and really working his way up to the depth chart. Potentially would have been the number one back. But now you got Gus Edwards splitting those carries. He's more of a goal line guy. He's not a early down back. He's a goal line short yardage back. Justice Hill hasn't been playing great this year. So that's my only concern. Because if they go in the AFC and they go in the playoffs, well, they are in the AFC, but if they go into the playoffs facing these teams in the AFC, okay, in the fourth quarter, you have a lead. What is the thing we know about the Ravens? Notoriously, they blow leads in the fourth quarter. Do you have a running game that can keep the chains moving, that can keep the clock moving? Can you run the football? Yes, we know Lamar Jackson can run the football, but can they get anything out of the running game in those situations is the only concern I would have about this Ravens. Other than that, I think the Ravens are built for January, and hopefully that dominance in the NFC can spill over to the AFC.
Is it crazy to say, and I know this is going to sound nuts when I first say it, but let me explain, like, is it wild or crazy to say that the loss of Keaton Mitchell could be more impactful than the loss of Mark Andrews for this Ravens team? Because Isaiah Likely, he's making plays every time I turn around. He's a really good player. And I agree. I think the running game, the loss of Mitchell, he was playing really well, super explosive. I think that could be a concern. Gus is automatic near the goal line. I think he's at the near the top of the league in touchdowns scored. But yeah, I definitely think that's a valid concern. Lamar, he runs the ball great, but you can't be like the Bills. You need that running game in the postseason in January. And now has to be the Ravens' time, man. Like, we've spoken about it a lot. They have a big game at home coming up this week against Miami. If they could win, they have the number one seed in the bag. They could secure it. But yeah, I definitely think that concern with the running game is definitely valid. I think their defense did such a good job on Monday, forcing takeaways that it almost didn't even matter. There weren't many other teams that were going to be able to beat Baltimore on Monday night. But is that something that's sustainable, especially in the playoffs? Probably not. So, yeah, I think it's a good point. I definitely think that's something to keep an eye out on.
Definitely. And I think this upcoming weekend is going to really tell a lot of things, when it comes to that number one seed, going up against the Dolphins. That's a very important game. That game might be not only for the number one seed, but for the MVP right there, because I still think Tyreek Hill is right in there. I think CMC is right in there. And I think we need to stop this Brock Purdy MVP. He's playing well as a, collective. When you look at the season, obviously did not play well in that game on Monday. But it goes to show you that, when you talk about game manager, what defines game manager? Okay, I need you to not lose me the game. But what happens when things get off script, where things are not going right, where the sky is falling, we need a tornado, okay? Or you like, oh my God, tornado. Yeah, I got it. No. You're losing your head. No. How about we go to the bathroom, get the mattress, okay, and cover up, okay? We need a guy like that. That's what you call an elite quarterback, that when the pocket breaks down like Lamar Jackson, the referee slipping and sliding, trying to get out the way, and he, trips him up for a safety. Guess what? No problem. Mentally, talented-wise, ability, able to be bound from that. But with Bob Purdy, one interception became two, became three, became four. Now, not all four was his fault, but it goes to show you when it rains, it pours. When they had the 3-game losing streak, one loss became 2 loss, and 2 loss became 3 loss. When you talk about, and I'm guessing we're going to transfer over to the 49ers right now. Glad I'm bringing this up. When you talk about adversity, okay, Kyle Shanahan, okay, did you go to the University of Adversity? That's the thing when you talk about the 49ers that I'm concerned about is, number one, is the notions that we get, but it's true notions, right? About their inability to come back from being down, going into the fourth quarter.
I have some numbers here, if you don't mind me
cutting in, right?
That I'd share. No. So the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, I'm not making this up, are 0-38 when trailing by more than 8 points entering the fourth quarter. Let me say that again. 0-38. They're also 1-32 when they're trailing by more than 3 points entering the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I came into this game kind of wondering, like, okay, do the Niners even have any weaknesses? You know, we spoke about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. Like 49ers are the field when it comes to who's winning the Super Bowl. And my take on the Niners coming out of this game, I have a couple. One, I agree with you. Brock Purdy was never the MVP. He's not the MVP. We could put those to bed right now. But also, like, what is this team's weakness? And it's the fact that when they're trailing late in the game, they can't come back. And also, like, Trent Williams got hurt, and immediately they crumbled. Like, I understand this offense is loaded, right? They have all the weapons, McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. And when things are rolling and they're scoring points and they have the lead, they're super tough to beat. But at the end of the day, Trent Williams gets hurt and this team loses 3 in a row. I know a left tackle is not winning MVP, but I think he is showing that he has a legit case. And then he goes down on Monday night and this offense immediately falls apart. I think San Francisco's best drive of that game was early on when they were just featuring Christian McCaffrey, getting him the ball in space as much as possible. But I think early on in that game, I don't want to like, I know this might sound crazy, but like it almost seemed to me that Kyle Shanahan, he kind of was trying to show us like, hey, Brock Purdy could do this. You know, I'm not saying he was, you know, showing him off trying to make his case for the MVP. This was obviously a huge game, but I found it interesting that late in that game too, even when San Francisco was trailing by a few touchdowns, it didn't even seem like Kyle trusted him that much. And I definitely think when this team is trailing, especially by more than one score in the fourth quarter, that is a clear weakness, no doubt.
I agree. And it's funny because it's a double-edged sword to that, because when you talk about them not being able to come back from adversity, come back from deficits, right? But there's a reason why we call Mr. Kyle Shanahan Mr. 28-3, because he blow leads. On top of that, you know, in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, you know, 20-10, the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, blew that lead. So we have a problem here. We have a conundrum.
Too, right?
What you said?
The NFC Championship game against the Rams too, right? They were up in that game.
It was up. It was definitely up in that game by 10. You know, he's notorious for doing that. That's why I'm like, you know, when you talk about this 49ers team, yes, there's a lot to like with their roster, with their talent, with their skill positions, but can they piece it all together as far as being able to, you know, hold on to a lead, being able to come back from a deficit? I'm not sure if they can, because one thing about Kyle Shanahan, you could ask your own question, why is it that these leads get blown, you know, from the other perspective? You know, he had Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was an MVP, you know, at that time in the Super Bowl. But also you had Jimmy G, you know, and I think a lot of it comes to the game manager theory and what that means, because I think when I watch Kyle Shanahan, he coaches conservative. We have to look at why they blowing leads. What's the reason why? And I remember a lot of these games and why they blow those leads is because he coaches conservative. He gets in his shell. And that's mainly because he probably don't believe in his quarterback to be that it. So when you talk about a guy like Lamar Jackson and why he's an MVP, that's a guy that I trust to come back from adversity, to be that it, to take over a game. And when you are in script and you know, everything is we in the lead. But when you're, you know, getting to the fourth quarter, you start getting in your shell because you don't have that it. Sean McVay, he was coaching like that too when he had Jared Goff. But when he got that it and Matthew Stafford, then things started, you know, being able to bloom. And they was coming back from being down, you know, a couple times in the playoffs. So I think Kyle Shanahan, you know, and this may not be a topic that we have to dive into right now, but I think Kyle Shanahan needs that it. And he cannot continue to have these quarterbacks that are in script, because there's always going to be a cap if things are not going right. Now, if things is going right and the 49ers are dominating teams, then shoot, they got nothing to worry about. But I find that hard to believe in the NFL today, that they're just going to weed throughout the playoffs, wheeze on down to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. So when I do reflect on that question that you asked privately in the chat about am I taking the 49ers or the field? Yeah, I'm probably going to have to take the field, with all due respect.
And I agree. And it's also funny because when you look at the rest of the NFC, like there isn't really that like one clear team that you're going to look at and say like, oh, this is the team I believe in, right? Like Philadelphia, we're going to get into them in a bit. Like they've had their struggles. Detroit is a great story, but they have not been playing great prior to the last 2 weeks. We'll see if they could keep turning things around going into the playoffs. Dallas can't beat a good team on the road. Like the Rams maybe, and they're going to play again in San Francisco in 2 weeks. But the 49ers have a pretty clear talent advantage there. They should win that game. I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield and everything that he's doing in Tampa. Like, there's not really that one team you look at and say, okay, I could see this team beating San Francisco, but you're 100% right. Like, in the playoffs, it doesn't matter who you're playing. It's never going to be an easy road. You can't just assume you're going to coast there, even if you get that 1 seed. And by the way, I found this interesting too. It's not even a complete lock that San Francisco gets that 1 seed. Now, you look at their schedule, they end the season at Washington and hosting the Rams. Those are 2 games they should win. But if they lose one of those 2 games, a team like Detroit or a team like Philly could easily lap them, especially with the schedules that they're playing. So I think that's something to look out for going forward. And even though Brock Purdy and his stats, when you look at them, he's near the top of every category, and that may not be the case with Lamar Jackson. But I think we saw on Monday night why one guy has a legitimate case for the MVP and the other just simply doesn't.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.